Spider-Man 2 not only contains two Spider-Mans, but some amazing skills like being able to play basketball with the bad guys or zap them with an insane amount of electricity. So today we're going to go through the best skills in Spider-Man 2 without any spoilers at all. Let's go. Let me know in the comments who you're playing as mostly, Miles or Peter. So first let's talk about how to level up fast and get those precious skill points. Now, for the most part, completing missions will give you experience, but if you just want to level up quickly and get access to most of the skills, you really want to do the open world activities. As you progress through like the early game main story, most of these like missions will become available to you. Very similar to like Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales, those missions will become available. But unlike Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales, you will actually need to be near those events before they actually appear for you. You can't just like mark them all on the map and then go over there. For most of these activities, you'll actually just need to get close to them and then they'll appear and you'll be able to go over and do them. Even if you don't go over at that specific time and do them, they'll still be then marked on your map so you can go back to them and do them. But by pressing R3 in, you'll be able to like ping the world and see any events that are near you that you can go and do. The very best ones for XP is absolutely the Hunter blinds and then going to the Hunter bases. These give like 1,000 XP just straight up, which is about the same amount you would get from doing like a full-fledged main mission. So you get heaps of experience from doing these, and they're not too long either. They're pretty short. They're very similar to say like the bases from Spider-Man 1, and they're a great way just to level up. But like the best tip, I guess, just to get extra XP as well, is to complete those bonus objectives from like crimes and everything like that. They give you an extra 100 XP, which is about the same as you get for some of the just general like quick collectibles out in the world. So you can't go wrong with any of that extra XP, and they're usually pretty easy to do, especially easier than Spider-Man 1 to do these little quick bonus objectives. But that, for the most part, the best way to level up is just from these open world activities, and then main stories will typically give you about one level as well. So let's get into the skills themselves. Now, the biggest tip for picking skills is the shared skill tree is absolutely the best one to pick from. Most of like the best skills, other than the character specific ones, come from the shared line, but the general benefit here is that you're getting skills that are benefiting both of the Spider-Men rather than just one. And there are plenty of times during missions and just during the open world where you will be switching between them. So if you've invested heavily in, say, Peter, and then you're like not stuck as Miles, but you know, you got to play as Miles for like a mission or something like that, you know, you're missing out on those benefits that you've put into Peter. So investing in the early game in the shared tree is absolutely what I would recommend, because then you're sort of getting the best of both worlds by getting benefits from both of the Spider-Men. But some of the best shared skills, one of my favorites is the loop-de-loop. So if you hold down R2 and swing after you are like in a dive, you'll do like a big circle and gain a massive boost of speed. This is great because you can move so friggin' fast in this game. Like, I can't believe how fast you can move, and this will help you gain momentum, especially to like cross large gaps. And there are also now abilities that you can use while you are like just traversing the world, like say spider jump. So with L1 and X, you can do a jump mid-air while swinging or gliding, and it's also a great way to help you cross gaps, because there's plenty of areas now that don't actually have buildings that you can swing on, right? Like whether you're crossing the river or like Central Park, like all those sort of areas where there isn't skyscrapers you can swing on, an ability like Spider Jump helps with that, and then you can use that to get into a glide. Spider Dash as well functions very similarly in that you use the ability and it will dash you forward. It's a good way to get momentum to then go straight into like gliding with your like wingsuit. It's really beneficial, especially for those areas as well. For some combat skills, Web Whip is great. I have been using this absolutely heaps. So by holding down triangle and then pressing R1, you can disarm enemies. It's great to use on enemies that have guns or melee weapons, as it essentially just turns them into the random fodder that just like punch you rather than having those weapons. It's really beneficial to stop, say, a lot of these encounters that have tons of like ranged dudes sort of around you, and if you don't want to deal with them at that time, you can just quickly grab their weapon and then like throw it back at them or throw it at someone else, that sort of a thing. It's really beneficial to use in those scenarios. My favorite skill line is the one to the left of the shared skills. Now, this is all the ones about like air juggling and like doing things in the air, and the best is the leap off bounce, because it allows you to stay in the air for longer, because you can essentially like juggle the targets. That's what we're talking about with like basketball in the intro, right? Like you can essentially like push the target into the ground, bounce them back up, and keep your momentum in the air. If you have defeated that enemy, you can hold down triangle to yank another enemy up into the air towards you, and then you can keep juggling them. This is great to combine with Air Marshal, which is one of the suit tech skills that you can combine to increase your damage while you're in the air. And overall, fighting in the air is just beneficial beneficial because in a lot of scenarios when you're just on the ground and there's a ton of melee enemies around you, you're going to be dodging all the time because enemies are going to be swinging at you and range attacks are going to be coming towards you. And by leveling up into this line, you can actually just stay essentially in the air, avoid all of those melee attacks, especially like having to parry attacks, which for some reason I'm really bad at parrying in this game. I always get confused with what the notification is. But then you've only really got to deal with the ranged enemies when you have to dodge because, you know, you're in the air, right? So you're essentially avoiding all of that combat on the ground. You just pull up enemies that you want to fight, smash them, and then pull up the next one and just sort of rinse, repeat and do that. And it's been really, like, my general flow for combat, it's been absolutely beneficial, especially on the higher difficulties, to be able to air juggle and with those suit tech powers as well. And you can like get enemies in the air with your gadgets as well. Like Upshot gadget will help get enemies in the air, or you can hold down the square button to like push a single enemy in the air. There's plenty of ways to get enemies up there with you if you don't want to just use like the yank skill as well. But generally, don't forget about those suit techs. I'm going to cover them in a different video, but the suit techs like Air Marshal, that gives you those buffs, and it's how you increase your damage, your health, your focus bar, all that stuff comes from the suit tech. So definitely don't forget about that. Let's talk about Peter specific skills. Now, as mentioned, I won't cover any story specific stuff here, and this includes skills. So pretty much all of like Miles and Peter's like best skills actually unlock as part of the story, and I don't want to cover those here because I don't want to spoil anything for you guys, but generally speaking, if it unlocks with the story, it's probably pretty damn good. But there's still some great skills that unlock for the hero specifically that aren't actually a part of that. The hero specific skills for the most part are about upgrading their specific abilities. So for Peter, one of my favorites is Spider Shock. It's a little bit like the Chain Lightning that Miles has, in that you L1 and circle and you will shock enemies in front of you. It's a great AoE ability for Peter, which is a little bit lacking in some of his AoE potential compared to Miles, I guess just like the variance between them. And so I like this as a good way to damage multiple enemies, which can be a bit tricky as Peter. And I also like the Spider Rush that he has as well, where you sort of tornado and zoom in front of enemies. It's a good way to move around the battlefield and collect multiple enemies and damage them. I find a lot of times with Peter, I don't rely on his abilities as much as I do Miles, as I don't find them to be as beneficial, especially the ones that just come as, you know, part of playing the game, not the story ones. So like things like Spider Shock and Spider Rush, and upgrading them, I've actually found value in doing. So I would be doing that, but not initially. Like start with the shared skills as mentioned and then upgrade these Peter ones later, but probably save those points for some of the story specific ones as well. For Miles, you've got plenty of options here, and they're all sort of around his like Venom powers and like the lightning effects that he can do. Now, I love Venom Jump for Miles. It's a great opener to get into that airborne combat that we were talking about earlier with L1 and X, and being able to pull enemies up in the air and then start that sort of juggle aspect of juggling them around and pushing them into the ground and like zipping them up to you and all of that stuff. Venom Smash is also great, especially when you upgrade Venom Smash with Jolt to launch multiple enemies in the air. Again, launching them in the air, being able to juggle them up there, keep them off the ground. They also can't attack when they're in the air, right? Because they're sort of like, they're not stunned, but they're unable to attack. So it's very beneficial. Chain Lightning, Power Overwhelming. I feel like there's a Star Wars reference that could be there somewhere, but it's like, you know, unlimited power or something. Anyway, Chain Lightning now hits 6 targets when you get the Chain Lightning Power Overwhelming skill. Again, it's just like a great AoE option. Very similar to Spider Shock, but the better version of that, right? Like a Chain Lightning will hit all of those targets. It's great to stun enemies and prevent them from attacking you, as well as dealing damage. But the abilities are definitely the key for Peter and Miles, and then investing in the shared skill for everything else. And also don't forget that you've got access to most of those main like traversal and basic skills from the first game, like being able to like kick swing and yank enemies and all that stuff. You don't have to buy those skills again. You've sort of got access to them already. So just keep that in your mind and in your arsenal, that you've got access to those original skills, or sort of by default, right, as part of the game, rather than having to pick up those again. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Thank you guys for watching this video till the end. Thank you to our members for supporting the channel. My name is Norza, and I hope you have a great day.